Chapter 1. The Package. The package sat on our kitchen counter, plain, discreet but marked private and confidential. Addressed to my wife. That label alone cracked something inside me. After 37 years of marriage, we'd always promised no secrets. Or at least I thought we had. I met her in the middle of a blackout at the local museum. We were strangers sitting in a dusty exhibit on ancient pottery, lit only by emergency lights. We talked for hours about nothing and everything. That same week I asked for her number. 2 years later we were married. Our life was solid. We raised 2 kids, paid off the house, and supported each other through decades of hard work. I drove FedEx trucks and managed logistics. She ran the front end at Costco. We were a good team. Until she started staying late, a lot. She'd mumble something about inventory or staff meetings, then disappear for hours. When I asked, she smiled, but her eyes never matched. The night I saw her talking in whispers on the back porch, ending the call the second I opened the door, I knew something had shifted. Then came the package. She said it was just a workbook sample. But she never read. And when it disappeared later that night, I knew. I couldn't unknow. I lay awake in bed while she slept soundly beside me, the silence between us heavier than it had ever been. It wasn't the package that broke me. It was the way she lied so easily, like it was second nature. I didn't know what I was looking for yet, but I knew I was going to find it. And strangely, fate handed me the first clue not through detective work or intuition, but through a passing comment while taking out the trash. My neighbor, tossing a bag into his bin, looked up and smiled. "Funny thing, I've seen your wife's car parked a lot lately over on Baxter Street. You guys buy a new place or something?" Chapter 2. The Diner Window. I didn't say anything to my neighbor. Just nodded, managed a chuckle, and carried the trash back inside. But inside my chest the storm had started. Baxter Street? We didn't know anyone there. There was no reason for her to be parked in some unfamiliar neighborhood, certainly not often enough for someone else to notice. That weekend, I told my wife I was going fishing with some old FedEx buddies. She smiled and kissed my cheek like she always did. Like nothing was wrong. Like we hadn't been sleeping back to back for months now. I grabbed my gear, but instead of heading to the lake, I parked across the street from Costco and waited. She clocked out right on time, walking out with a few coworkers, laughing, relaxed. Normal. But instead of heading to her car like always, she walked 2 blocks down and slid into the passenger seat of a sleek black sedan I'd never seen before. My heart felt like it stopped, then sprinted. I followed, 2 cars behind, trying to breathe. They drove to a small diner just outside of town, one of those cozy, tucked-away places we used to love before the kids came. I parked across the lot, hidden just enough. Through the window I saw her, my wife of nearly 4 decades, sitting across from a man about our age. Her body leaned in toward him, laughing, resting her hand on the table like it belonged to him. I recognized him. Her boss. The Costco warehouse manager. His face was in a photo from the company picnic last summer, the one she claimed she forgot to invite me to. They weren't just eating. They were intimate. Familiar. I took photos. My hands shook, not from anger but from grief. Because I wasn't just looking at my wife having dinner. I was watching the version of her I didn't know existed. I didn't confront her that night. I needed to know how deep this ran. So the next morning I requested 2 weeks off from work. I told HR I needed some personal time. They didn't ask questions. After 30 years I had more than earned it. And just like that, I became a full-time detective in my own life, never imagining that what I'd find next would make that night at the diner look like a paper cut compared to the knife waiting in my back. Chapter 3. 2 phones, 2 lovers. Those 2 weeks were the loneliest, quietest days of my life. I wasn't just investigating my wife, I was mourning her. Mourning the version of her I thought I knew. Every step I took deeper into the truth felt like peeling back layers of our history and finding rot where I once saw light. It started with her phone bill. Hundreds of texts to 2 different numbers. One belonged to her boss, the man from the diner. That part hurt, but it was the second number that chilled me. I didn't recognize it at all. While she slept, I searched her purse, found the second phone, tucked in a side pocket like it was just a lip balm or receipt. It was a burner, plain and cheap. When I unlocked it, my breath caught. Her messages weren't just romantic, they were electric. Desperate. Familiar. And signed, "Yours forever, Roy." Roy. A name I hadn't heard in decades. In a buried drawer of memory, I remembered her talking about a college boyfriend with that name. Someone who had broken her heart, someone she said had taught her not to trust young men. She hadn't mentioned him in years. But here he was, on a phone in our home, making plans to see her again, talking about secret getaways, sharing photos I couldn't even process. The affair with her boss was just the surface. She had 2 lives. 2 men. 2 betrayals. And I had been her husband through it all, faithful, blind, loyal to a fantasy. I dug further. Bank statements showed expensive gifts charged to our card. Hotels. Dinners. There was even a charge from a jewelry store on our wedding anniversary, the one she said she had to work late for. I looked at the receipt. A men's bracelet. Not for me. The real breaking point came from an app called Text Me. She used it to message Roy. Their conversations were everything I feared and more. Detailed. Sexual. Reunions described with such passion, it made my hands tremble to read them. 8 months. She'd been seeing both of them for 8 months. I was working overtime. She was working them. I sat alone in my office, surrounded by printouts, screenshots, and copies. Our family photo hung crooked on the wall beside me. The smiles in that photo mocked me. I wasn't angry yet. I was hollow. That came later. That night, she kissed me before bed. Said goodnight like she always did. And I smiled back because I already knew how this chapter would end. Chapter 4. The Confrontation Folder. I spent the next few days doing what I do best. Logistics. Only this time, I wasn't managing delivery routes or tracking packages. I was organizing a confrontation. A controlled detonation. Every photo, every text, every receipt, every call log, I compiled it all into a folder. Chronological, color-coded, airtight. I met with a lawyer quietly. Explained everything. After 37 years of marriage, I wasn't about to walk away with just a broken heart and a drawer full of evidence. She didn't contest the facts. Not after she saw the documentation. The lawyer was calm, measured, like he'd seen this kind of betrayal 1,000 times. Maybe he had. But to me it was still raw. I chose a Friday. She always had Saturdays off. I wanted her to have nowhere to hide, no excuse to rush off to work or suddenly disappear. I sat out on the patio, folder on the table, waiting. When she walked in and saw me sitting there, she looked confused. "You're home early," she said, setting down her purse. "Actually, I'm right on time," I told her. She stepped out slowly, eyeing the folder like it was radioactive. I slid it toward her. "Take a look." She opened it, flipped through a few pages. Her face changed in waves, confusion, shock, panic, and then something I didn't expect. Relief. She didn't deny it. Didn't even try. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. I just stared at her. "Which one? Your boss? Roy? Or did you not mean for me to find out?" She pushed the folder away like it burned her. "Of course it was real," she said when I asked if any of our life together had meant anything. "But people change." "No," I said. "You changed." She started sobbing, the kind of tears that come when someone gets caught, not when someone feels remorse. And I felt nothing. Not hate. Not even anger. Just the final exhale of something that had already died. I told her I'd already moved into an Airbnb. I had no interest in yelling, no desire for violence. But if I stayed a minute longer in that house, something dark might take over. She reached out and grabbed my arm. Her touch used to be my anchor. Now it made my skin crawl. "You can't just throw away 37 years, she choked out. I looked her dead in the eye. "You did. I'm just signing the delivery slip." I pulled away. Her hand slipped off me like the last petal off a dying flower. And when I stepped out that door, I didn't look back. Chapter 5. Aftershock. The silence after I walked out was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I spent that first week at the Airbnb barely speaking. No TV. No radio. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of unfamiliar floorboards. I slept badly. It worse. But every morning I made coffee. And every morning I didn't cry. The divorce moved fast. I had the receipts, literally. She didn't contest much. The judge gave me 60% of the house equity. She kept her retirement. I kept mine. No alimony. The court saw her income, the proof, and the double betrayal. My lawyer said I was lucky. But it didn't feel like winning. Just surviving. Telling the kids was harder than leaving. They always saw us as the steady ones. The blueprint. Their friends' parents divorced, but not theirs. Not us. When I sat them down, I could barely speak. I showed them some of the documents. Enough to explain. Not enough to destroy their image of her. My daughter asked me, "How are you so calm about this?" I wasn't. But I'd had weeks to prepare for the blow. She hadn't. "I'm not calm," I told her. "I'm just done bleeding." They were shocked. Angry. But not at me. And not just at her. They were angry at the lie. At how long it had been going on. At the fact that they had to reassess every memory from the last year of holidays, birthdays, quiet dinners at home, wondering which of those nights had been built on a betrayal. She tried to reach out to them. She still does. But the responses are cold, polite, distant. The kind of tone you use with a stranger who still calls you sweetheart, like the word means anything anymore. I went back to work. My coworkers at FedEx eventually found out. They treated me like family. They dragged me out for drinks. They covered for me when I needed a moment. And most importantly, they reminded me that I was still the man I had always been, even if my wife had forgotten that. 9 months after I moved out, I saw her boss, Costco guy, at Best Buy. He looked away like a guilty child. Word was they didn't last. Apparently Roy, the college sweetheart, had complicated things. Last I heard, she was living alone in a rental apartment. The house was up for sale. As for me, I started spending time at a local service dog training center. Volunteering. Working with labs, retrievers. They don't lie. They don't cheat. They just love and learn. I thought that would be the most peace I'd get. Until one day, on a group hike, a woman in her 50s asked if I wanted to grab a coffee sometime. Her smile was warm, patient, real. And for the first time in a long time, I said yes, without hesitation. Chapter 6. The rest of my life. A year after the divorce, I stood on a glacier in Alaska, watching the northern lights swirl across the sky like brushstrokes from a god I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. The cold bit at my fingers, but I didn't mind. I felt awake, clear. Like someone who had been underwater for too long and finally broke the surface. She had always hated the cold. Refused every time I brought up Alaska. Said it was too far, too uncomfortable. So I waited. 37 years of compromise. 37 years of putting things on hold. Until I realized I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living. That trip wasn't about revenge or escape. It was about reclaiming the parts of me I had filed away for later. Later never came, until I made it. The hardest parts weren't the court hearings or financial decisions. They weren't even the lonely dinners or the ache of reaching across a bed to find no one there. The hardest part was the questioning. Could I have prevented it? Was I not enough? But eventually I stopped asking. Because it didn't matter. I had given everything I had, loyalty, love, trust, and it wasn't enough for her. But that didn't make me less. It didn't break me. It revealed me. Now I take things one step at a time. I hike more. I read. I volunteer. I sit on porches and drink coffee in peace. And every now and then I smile when a stranger says hello, because I'm no longer afraid of starting over. I still think about her. About us. You don't erase 37 years like chalk on a board. But I don't hate her anymore. I just hope she finds whatever it was she kept searching for. As for me, the rest of my life is still mine. That's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't get to write your ending.